Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at a scenario that is, honestly, it's every corporate PR team's absolute worst nightmare.
A complete and total train wreck.
It is the train wreck to end all train wrecks. Imagine a tech giant, a company that has been the industry standard for literal decades, deciding to walk into the wild west of the internet, to have a calm, nuanced, elevated conversation.
And when you say Wild West, let's be specific. You mean Reddit?
I absolutely mean Reddit. And the company is Adobe.
Oh, boy. That is a rest disaster right there.
It really is.
That is not a nuanced environment.
No. It's like watching someone in a pristine three-piece suit walk into a biker bar, turn down the music, and ask if anyone wants to discuss synergy and brand values.
Yeah, that's not going to end well.
The result was a PR disaster. So swift, so brutal, and so comprehensive that the thread had to be locked almost immediately.
It's amazing how quickly these things can spiral. You think you're doing community outreach, and 20 minutes later, you're trending for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. It is a classic case of a corporation completely misreading the room. We're talking about angry professionals, hilarious and unprintable usernames.
Oh, you're definitely getting to that.
We will get to those, I promise. And on top of everything, accusations that the apologies were being written by AI bots.
Which, given the context of why everyone is mad at Adobe in the first place, incredibly ironic. It's almost poetic.
So to guide us through this wreckage, we are looking at a breakdown from the YouTube channel Clownfish TV titled Adobe Damage Control Backfires on Reddit.
Right?
They did a fantastic job analyzing this specific thread, the comments, and the broader context of why Adobe is currently sitting in a very, very hot seat.
And our mission here is to really look past just the drama of, the drama is fast wrong, but we need to understand the widening disconnect between creative professionals and the tools they rely on.
Right. It's about more than just a bad post. This is a symptom of a much bigger disease.
It is. It's about the economics of subscription model, the friction of forced AI integration, and the erosion of consumer trust. We really need to talk about vendor lock-in and this whole idea of deterministic versus probable.
And why Wall Street is essentially forcing Adobe to make its users hate them.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
And of course, we are going to laugh at how damage control can turn into more damage in the blink of an eye.
That is often the way it goes. The cover-up is worse than the crime, or in this case, the apology is worse.
So let's start with the spark, because this Reddit fire didn't just start out of nowhere. There was plenty of dry timber lying around waiting for a match.
Right. If you just look at the Reddit post in a vacuum, you miss the entire point. To understand the visceral anger on that thread, you have to look at what happened with Adobe Animate just prior.
Adobe Animate. Now, for those of us who have been around the internet for a long, long time, we know this by a different name.
We do.
This is Flash.
The legendary, yeah.
This was the backbone of the early internet. Homestar Runner, Newgrounds, every browser game you played in 2004. This software is cultural heritage.
It really is. And for a specific subset of the animation industry, broadcast television, indie animation, it is still the primary tool. It's a vector-based animation tool that allows for a very specific, crisp style that is, it's hard to replicate elsewhere.
Okay, so according to the source, Adobe originally announced that they were putting Animate into maintenance mode.
Now, maintenance mode is a terrifying phrase if you work in software or enterprise.
It doesn't sound.
It is corporate speak for we are killing this product. It means no new features, minimal support, and eventually it disappears. It's basically hospice care for software.
And the animation industry understandably freaked out.
Completely lost their minds.
But play devil's advocate. Software gets old. Flash is arguably ancient code. Isn't it normal for a company to say, hey, we're moving on? Why the path?
That's a fair question, but you have to understand the pipeline. In animation, you aren't just buying a tool for today. You are building a pipeline for the next 3 to 5 years.
Right.
If a studio greenlights a 52-episode cartoon, they are hiring staff, building assets, and setting up workflows based on that specific software.
I see. So you can't just switch midstream.
You absolutely cannot. It would be a financial disaster. So if the software goes into maintenance mode, it signals to the entire industry, do not start new projects.
Okay.
Which means freelancers stop learning, which means the talent pool dries up, which means a studio can't hire people. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of death. So when Adobe said maintenance mode, they were essentially telling these studios, your business model is now on a ticking clock.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So the blogs light up, professionals are terrified about their livelihoods. Adobe sees this panic, and they decide to do a walkback.
Right.
But the Clownfish TV hosts point out that it wasn't really a walkback, was it?
Not at all. It was a cosmetic change. It was gaslighting, Frank.
What did they do?
Adobe removed the specific end date from there now, but they kept the maintenance mode status.
So they basically said, okay, we won't tell you exactly what it's dying, but rest assured, it is still dying.
Precise. They just hid the timeline to quiet the noise. But the reality, as the source argues, is that nothing actually changed. Adobe is still chasing AI and subscription revenue, and legacy software like Animate just doesn't fit that new high-growth model. It's not scalable in the way they want.
It's like a landlord saying, I'm not evicting you next Tuesday anymore, but still leaving the eviction notice on the door without a date.
That is a perfect analogy.
You're still packing your boxes.
You are, and users saw right through it. They realized that the software they depend on might not be around forever, and this breaches the unwritten contract of the subscription model.
What's that contract?
The argument for subscriptions, software as a service, is that we pay you every single month forever, and in exchange, you keep the software updated, secure, and state-of-the-art.
Right.
If you stop updating it but you keep charging me for it, you are breaking.
That brings up a hilarious detail from the source. Apparently, The Onion, the satirical news site, decided to roast Adobe during this whole debacle.
Oh, this was brutal. And when The Onion targets you, you know you've reached a mainstream saturation of...
They ran a fake ad that said, Adobe, experience the magic of buying new software every month forever.
It's funny because it hurts. It's funny because it's not actually a joke. That is literally the business model.
It cuts to the core of the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
The source mentions this specific fear. If you depend on this software to make money, and it goes away, or if it becomes a perpetual subscription trap where you never own anything,
then you are incredibly vulnerable. Vulnerability is the key. You are not a customer who owns a tool. You are a tenant renting a capability. And the landlord can raise the rent or condemn the building whenever...
And that sets the stage. The atmosphere was already volatile. People were already feeling like hostages to the subscription model. The end users were panicked. The Photoshop users were annoyed by price hikes. And then,
in the midst of all,
Adobe decides to log on to Reddit.
The worst possible time and the worst possible place. It's like walking into a room where everyone is screaming and asking if anyone wants to buy some essential oils.
So let's get into the incident itself. The source details a post on the Adobe subreddit by a user named Luke Choi.
And it's important to note, this is a verified Adobe employee. This isn't a random person. This is an official representative.
Right.
And judging by the polished nature of the text, this wasn't just Luke riffing. This was likely a message that went through 3 layers.
For sure. And he's there to introduce the Adobe Creative Collective.
The name alone, it sounds like a committee. It sounds like something from a dystopian novel where they try to make the bureaucrat friendly.
It really does.
Yeah.
The pitch was that they wanted to bring together a group of respected creative leaders to spark dialogue about the future of design, AI, ethics, and crafting careers.
You know, on paper, in a corporate boardroom in San Jose, that probably sounded great. Let's engage the community. Let's have a dialogue. We'll get some influencers.
But on Reddit...
On Reddit, that is blood in the water. Reddit is a meritocracy of ideas, usually cynical ones. It is not a place that respects thought leadership or corporate initiatives.
Let's talk about the tone. The source really hammers this home. The post used phrases like navigating these changes, spark dialogue, and elevating more nuanced conversations.
It reeks of what we call fellow kids energy.
How do you do, fellow kid?
Exactly. It felt like a corporate press release trying to wear a hoodie. It didn't sound like a human being talking to other human beings. It sounded like a marketing strat.
And that specific phrase, elevating, it's kind of insulting.
It's a subtle insult. Elevating more nuanced conversations implies that the conversations the users are currently having about bug, pricing, and crashes are low.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way.
It implies the users are children screaming in the mud, and the benevolent corporation is here to elevate them to a higher plane of ethics and career craft. It's incredibly condescending.
And the specific irony, which the source points out, is attempting to discuss ethics and identity on Reddit.
Of all places.
Reddit is known for raw, unfiltered, and often hostile feedback. It is not a seminar room at a design conference.
No. You don't go to Reddit for a nuanced conversation about corporate ethics initiated by the corporation that is currently charging you money. It's like a fox going into the hen house and asking if anyone wants to have a nuanced conversation about poultry.
It's like walking into a boxing ring and asking if anyone wants to talk about poetry. You're going to get
punched. And they got punched immediately.
The comments got so bad so quick that Adobe had to lock the thread.
They shut it down, which is the ultimate admission of defeat on the internet.
The hosts at Clownfish TV were just laughing about this, asking, who the fuck thought this was a good idea?
It just shows a fundamental disconnect. Users didn't want playbooks or summits or podcasts, which ironically were things this collective was promising.
They promised a podcast.
They promised content, playbooks, things to help you navigate.
Users don't want a playbook.
No. They want functional software. They want the tools they pay for every month to work. They don't want to be guided through a landscape by the company that is altering the landscape against their will.
That is a powerful way to put it. Adobe is breaking the road and then offering to sell you a map.
And the users on Reddit weren't buying the map. They were screaming, "Fix the road."
Let's dig into the specific grievances, because the comments on this locked thread are a goldmine of consumer insight. It really pulls back the curtain on how these professionals feel.
It's a longitudinal study in customer dissatisfaction. It really is.
One of the core issues is this renting forever problem. The source highlights a top comment from a user who has used Photoshop since before CS.
Oh, yeah.
That's Creative Suite. That's over 25 years.
This is an OG user. This is someone who remembers when Photoshop came in a box that weighed 5 pounds because of the manuals.
Right. They said they were an early convert from Quark Express to InDesign. They brought their whole agency over. This is exactly the kind of brand advocate Adobe used to rely on.
The champion user, the evangelist. In the marketing funnel, this is the person at the very bottom who brings in other.
And this user said, and I'm quoting here, "I've never in my 25 years felt less served by your company."
That is devastating. When you lose the people who have been with you for a quarter of a century, you have a serious problem. It means your churn isn't just new people trying it and quitting. It means you are rotting from.
The user went on to say that the reasons they left Quark back in the day, a company out of touch, inflating costs, are the exact same reasons they hate Adobe now.
It's the cycle of life for these tech monopolies. We see it everywhere. They start as the better option, the cheaper option. They kill the competition core case and become the industry standard. And then once they have a monopoly, they become the bloated incumbent that extracts value rather than creating it.
And a huge part of that extraction is the pricing. The source breaks down the cost mentioned in the thread, around $60 to $70 a month for the full suite.
Which, let's play devil's advocate again. If you are a large agency in New York, $70 a month per seat is a rounding error.
Sure.
It's tax deductible. It's the cost of doing business, like electricity.
Right. But there is a massive divide between the professionals and the hobbyists or freelancers.
The shutout effect. That's what we're.
The source mentions a specific example of a TV editor. This is a 30-year veteran, an award-winning editor, someone who has worked for major networks.
Right. So this isn't a kid making memes. This is a pro.
But they've lost clients recently. The industry is contracting, which is a whole other topic. And they find that monthly fee incredibly burdensome during lean times.
This just destroys the argument that pros can afford it. Even pros have down months. Even award winners have dry spells.
In the old days, what would happen?
In the old days of the perpetual license, you bought CS6 for, say, $800. If you had a bad year, you didn't buy CS7. You just kept using CS6. It worked fine.
You owned it.
You owned it. It was an asset on your books. It didn't cost you anything to keep the lights on.
But now, the meter is always running.
The meter is always running. If you stop paying, the software locks. You can't open your files. You are locked out of your career.
And that leads to the concept of vendor lock-in. Can you explain that?
Sure. Vendor lock-in is when the cost of switching to a competitor is so high that you stay with the original vendor even if you... With Adobe, it's not just learning a new interface. It's the file format. PSD, INDD, AI, these are proprietary. If you have 20 years of archives in InDesign and you switch to Affinity Publisher, you might not be able to open your old work flawlessly. You are trapped by your own.
That is terrifying. And it explains why there was this recurring demand in the comments. Bring back perpetual licenses.
The nostalgia for the perpetual license is real. It represents freedom. It represents ownership.
The expert in the source recounts the history of this shift. Do you remember when they switched from owning the disk to Creative Cloud?
Vividly, it was around 2013, and the original pitch was fast. They said subscriptions were for people who couldn't afford the $900 upfront cost.
Right. Photoshop used to be expensive.
It was a massive barrier to entry. If you were a student, you piped.
Allegedly.
So the subscription was sold as democratization. Now, for just $30 a month, a student can have the same pro. And initially, people thought, okay, that's fair. I can turn it on and off.
But what happened?
The option became the only option. You couldn't buy it anymore. And over time, the price crept up. And if you do the math, over 10 years, you are paying thousands and thousands of dollars, far more than the original sticker price.
The source mentions a user named Secret Sandwich.
Great.
Secret Sandwich bragged about still having the last Adobe disk.
The Holy Grail, CS6.
Because, as they put it, none of the advancements since have been worth paying perpetually forever.
And that is the damning part. If the subscription model funded massive innovation that users loved, they might forgive it. If Photoshop was twice as good every year, maybe we'd pay.
But that's not what's happening.
But the argument here is that the software has stagnated, or worse, gotten buggy, while the price coming.
Well, speaking of advancements, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The thing Adobe is betting the farm on, and the thing the users seem to hate the most.
AI.
The AI wedge. The source describes the sentiment as users feeling like AI is being shoved down our throats.
It is the classic disconnect between what the company wants to sell and what the customer wants to buy. Adobe is obsessed with generative AI Adobe Firefly.
Right.
They want to be the leader in it. They see OpenAI, they see Midjourney, and they are terrified.
But the core user...
Hostile. Extremely hostile.
One user argument was, how about you fix the bug before you shove more AI I didn't ask for down my throat?
It's a question of resource allocation. Users see Adobe spending billions on R&D for AI, marketing AI, integrating AI into every menu. Meanwhile, the basic tools they use every day, selection tools, tracking in Premiere, crashing in After Effects, are suffering.
It's like they're remodeling the penthouse while the foundation is cracking.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And the quality of the AI itself came under fire. The source described it as dog shit for minor corrections.
Yeah, that was a funny but telling example. A user mentioned trying to fix a small detail, like an eye in a photo, and instead of a subtle correction, the AI completely redrew it into some cartoonish nightmare.
It's the uncanny valley effect. But why is that such a big deal? Can't you just undo it?
You can, but it speaks to a fundamental difference in how tools work. This is the difference between deterministic and probabilistic.
Okay, I'll break that.
Professionals use deterministic tool. If I use a clone stamp tool in Photoshop and I click here and paint there, it does exactly what I tell it to do. It is 100% predictable. It is a scalpel. I am in control.
Okay, makes sense.
Generative AI is probabilistic. It is a best guess based on a massive data set. If I circle an eye and say, fix this, the AI is rolling a dice. It's saying, here is what an eye statistically looks like.
And it might be wrong.
It might be good. It might be a cartoon. It is a slot machine.
A slot machine.
Exactly. Professionals don't have time for slot machines. They need to know that if they move a pixel, it stays moved. They don't want to prompt and hope. They want to create.
This leads to that deep insight in the comments about the difference between a prompter and a creator.
This is the philosophical heart of the backlash. This is why it feels personal to so many.
So Adobe seems to be pivoting. For decades, they catered to creators, people who spent years learning how to draw, how to color grade, how to kern type. These are skills. Hard-earned skill.
Right. It takes 10,000 hours to become a master retoucher. It's a craft.
Now, with features like Firefly and generative fill, they are catering to prompters. People who type, make me a picture of a cat on a skateboard, and hit enter.
And the creators feel betrayed. Of course they. The software they mastered is now being designed to bypass them. It's becoming a tool to replace the very skills they spent decades refining.
They feel like Adobe is actively working to make them obsolete.
Absolutely. It's like a cool company that stops making hammers for carpenters and starts making robots that build houses, but expects the carpenters to pay for the robots that are taking their jobs.
And the robots build crooked houses with cartoon eyes.
Exactly. So it's insult to injury. It is. It's an identity crisis. Adobe is saying the future is prompting, and the users are saying the future is craft. And those two things are incompatible.
Now, if the AI in the software wasn't bad enough, the users started suspecting that the empathy they were getting on Reddit was also AI.
This is where the story gets really funny and really dystopian.
So Luke Choice, the employee, is replying to these angry comments, but users started noticing something weird about their reply.
The tone, it was off. It was too smooth. It was inhuman.
The source describes it as beep boop boop.
It was repetitive phrasing. Things like, I understand your frustration. My goal is to amplify the voice, navigating the landscape. It lacked conversational flow. It had that sterile, HR-approved cadence that we were all starting to recognize.
And then there was the double post glitch.
The smoking gun. Yes.
Tell us about that.
So a user spotted a reply from and questioned if it was a bot. They basically said, are you real? And the account replied with the exact same message verbatim.
Word for word.
Word for word, like a glitch in the Matrix. It was just, boom, pasted in again.
That is incredible. So either this guy is copy-pasting approved legal text from a Word doc,
which is pathetic,
or they literally set a bot loose on Reddit to calm down the angry mob.
And neither option is good. If it's a human, they have been stripped of their humanity by corporate policy so thoroughly that they are indistinguishable from a script.
Right.
If it's a bot, it's the ultimate insult using AI to apologize for forcing AI on.
It's layers of irony. It's an irony lasagna.
It is, a very bitter.
And speaking of irony, we have to talk about the hero of this story, a user with a name that I can't believe I have to say on a deep dive.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I know exactly who you're talking about. This is the highlight of the entire thread.
Bohemian Butt Plug.
A legend, a verified Reddit.
This user, Bohemian Butt Plug, wrote a highly articulate, devastating critique of Adobe.
It was one of the most well-written comments in the thread. It was lucid, it was passionate, it was civic.
They said, "It sounds like this post was written by Gen AI. Your product is too expensive. Your AI is not fit for purpose."
Direct, clear, and human.
And the expert commentary from the source pointed out the dark irony here. You have a human with a ridiculous, obscene username sounding more real and more professional than the verified corporate representative.
It sums up the internet perfectly. The professional looks like a bot, and Bohemian Butt Plug is the voice of reason. It completely flips the script on what professionalism means.
It really does.
It also highlights how users are becoming hypersensitive to corporate speak. We can smell ChatGPT from a mile away now. We have developed antibodies to it.
The source shared an anecdote about this, calling a utility company and frying the voice bot.
Yes, the hanging up incident.
The host asked the bot a question it wasn't programmed to answer, something about the frustration of the situation, and the bot just hung up.
It panicked, it hit a logic error, and terminated the call. It couldn't handle a real human emotion.
And the takeaway was that companies are using AI to shield themselves from customers.
That's the utility company comparison. It's dehumanizing. You can't reach a person. You have to get past the beep boop first. And if you ask a hard question, the machine just...
So Adobe's thread locking.
It was the digital equivalent of that bot hanging up.
We cannot process your anger, so we are shutting down the conversation.
Exactly. Error. Too much truth. Shutting down.
So we have angry users, bad AI, and a PR disaster. But the big question is, does it matter?
The too big to fail question. Yeah.
Why don't these users just leave? If I go to a restaurant and the food is bad and the waiter is a robot who yells at me, I don't go back. I go to the place next door.
But software is not a restaurant. It's a utility. It's infrastructure.
A hostage.
It really is. The source calls it the industry standard lock-in. If you're a freelancer, your clients expect Adobe files. They want a PSD. They want an AI file. You send them a file from an open source program and the layers are messed up. You look unprofessional. You lose the gig.
So the network effect protects Adobe.
Exactly. Everyone uses it because everyone uses it. It's a vicious cycle.
And there's the legacy trap. One of the hosts mentioned having decades of files.
Imagine 20 years of work, your portfolio, your projects, your entire history. If you cancel your subscription and you haven't converted all those files, which would take months of unpaid labor, you lose access to your own life's work.
You're paying a ransom.
You are essentially paying a ransom to keep access to your own path.
You are renting access to your own history. That is a chilling way to put it.
It is. But the source points out that the financial picture isn't as rosy as Adobe might act. Wall Street is noticing the cracks.
Okay, so the source brought up the stock market context. Adobe stock is down significantly.
Roughly 38% in the last year or so. It fell from a high of around $688 in 2021 to around $262 at the time of the record. That is a massive haircut. That is billions of dollars in value wiped out.
Why? If they have everyone trapped, why is the stock down?
Because of the growth versus value trap. Adobe is a mature company. It should be a value stock, steady dividends, slow growth. But tech companies hate being value stocks.
Right.
They want to be growth stocks like NVIDIA or OpenAI. They want the high PE ratio.
So they have to show massive new expansion.
Exactly. We make good tools for artists. Isn't a growth story anymore. We sell Photoshop to everyone who needs it. Means you've saturated the market. Where does the next billion come from? AI. We are the leader in generative AI is the growth. They have to push AI to justify the massive R&D spending to the board. Even if the users hate it, the board needs to hear that they are competing with OpenAI and Midjourney.
So the users are caught in the crossfire between the board of directors and the stock price.
Exactly. The product strategy is being driven by the stock price, not their need. They are trying to be Netflix with the subscription revenue, but they are alienating the people who actually make the movies.
But their alternative. The source mentioned a few.
You mentioned Affinity.
Affinity has been the darling for a while. One-time purchase, good software. I see people praising it all the time.
It is great software, but there's a catch.
There's always.
Concerns arose after Canva bought Affinity.
Canva, the king of templates and AI.
Exactly. Canva is the ultimate prompter. So when Canva bought it, the creator community got very. The fear is that Canva will eventually push Affinity down the same subscription and AI path. The source mentioned that someone finally got Adobe to work on, but it's difficult. It's running through compatibility layers. It's not a seamless solution for a working professional who has a dead.
Not ideal.
No, you don't want to be debugging your operating system when you have a client.
So the conclusion from the source was a bit gloomy.
It was. Users feel stuck between a rock and a hard. They hate the direction Adobe is going, but the walls of the walled garden are very
tough spot.
Did it? But history tells us that even high walls crumble. Stop maintaining the foundation.
Okay, let's unpack this whole mess and wrap it up. What did we learn from this deep dive into the creative collective disaster?
We learned that there is a massive rift, a canyon, really. On one side, you have the users. They want ownership, perpetual licenses. They want stability, fix the bug. And they want respect. Stop forcing AI on us.
And on the other side,
You have the corporation. They want recurring revenue. They want AI dominance to please Wall Street, and they want to control the narrative with nuanced conversations that they can shut down when things get real.
it's a fundamental misalignment of values.
It is. And the fellow kids marketing just highlights how out of touch they are with the reality of their users' lives.
So here's the provocative thought to end. We know Adobe is the standard. We know they are huge, but
And gravity applies to everyone.
if a company's stock price relies on features its core users actively hate, how long can that business model survive?
That is the question. How long until the industry standard collapses under its own weight? Or until a competitor finally breaks through? Maybe not Affinity, maybe something new, because they simply listen to what people...
It's a dangerous game to play with the people who create the media that the world consumes.
Yeah.
You don't want the people who design your ads and your logos to hate you.
It certainly is. The creative collective might have been a disaster, but it did one thing: unite against Adobe.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Just remember, sometimes the best damage control isn't a new initiative or a podcast or a Reddit post.
No.
Sometimes it's just listening to the person named Bohemian Buttplug.
Words to live by.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.